Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please step up and have a seat. And then can you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Sure. Nicholas Ejak, first name Nicholas, last name Ejak, E-J-A-K.
Prosecutor.
Thank you. Sir, I want to direct your attention to the fall of 2021. Where were you working at that time?
Oxford High School.
Okay. And what were you doing there?
I was the Dean of Students.
How long had you been employed at that time with the Oxford School District?
That was my first year.
I'm sorry?
That was my first year.
Okay. And you're with a different school district now?
Correct.
Okay. Tell the jury, please, what exactly the Dean of Students at Oxford High School did.
So the Dean of Students is responsible for all of the student body, behavior, discipline, attendance, academic intervention, behavior intervention.
Okay. So walk us through a typical day as the Dean of Students at Oxford High School, at least in the fall of 2021.
Sure. So in the fall, also, we were, in 2021, we were dealing through the COVID-19 pandemic. So in addition to those responsibilities, due to the health order, part of my responsibility was ensuring that everybody was masked up. So that was part of the job throughout the day too, was to ensure students had access to masks, but they were also wearing them. Students being referred throughout the day from teachers based on behavior they're seeing in class, students coming down to report stuff going on in the building, conflicts they're having, conflicts they're hearing about, attendance issues where kids aren't coming to school or they're showing up late frequently to class. At the time, we didn't have an attendance policy coming out of COVID, so it's also part of my responsibility was to put together a policy that would work for the school.
Okay, so yesterday we heard from Sean Hopkins, who was a school counselor, and he said that there were 4 counselors. How many Dean of Students were there?
1.
Okay, so will the responsibilities of a school counselor differ from the responsibilities of the Dean of Students?
Yes, that's correct.
How so?
So counseling, they oversee, to my understanding, they oversee college and career planning, class scheduling, mental health of the student body, planning events in relation to like extracurricular activities, the Oakland Schools Technical Campus. There's a lot of responsibilities that has no relation to the Dean of Students role.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you would be called in when there was a discipline problem in class.
Correct. That was the main function of my responsibility.
Okay. And as you said at that point, the county health department mandated masks, or is that the state order?
I believe that was Oakland County.
Okay. And so it was your responsibility to also mandate compliance with that?
Correct.
Okay. So November of 2021, all students and staff were wearing a face mask?
Correct, with the exception of anyone that had a medical exemption.
Okay, thank you. Now, how long have you been in that role as of November of 2021?
That would be 4 months.
Okay. So when you started that school year?
Yes.
All right. And where did you work before? What did you do before?
So prior to that, I was a long-term substitute teacher for Lake Orion schools. Once again, coming out of COVID, I had been laid off as the Dean of Students out on the west side of the state, where I was running an alternative high school program. And so I had returned to this side and was able to obtain employment as a long-term substitute teacher.
Okay.
With the idea that it would be temporary for that school year.
So in November of 21, how long have you been in education?
For teachers, administrators, students, and parents, everybody has a different view of that, but it's the same system. So if you're a parent, there's a parent view where you're able to see specific things to your child as a parent. For students, it's the same thing. You can see stuff for your students, which includes your grades, missing assignments, and then like my view as a part of the school staff administration would be to be able to see all of that information.
Okay.
And input information to that as well.
And as an administrator, you're able to input, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. And that came with every student in the district, would that be right?
Correct.
That was Jennifer Crumbley's son, a student at Oxford High School in the fall of 2021?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to November of 2021, did you have any interaction with him?
I did not know.
I want to direct your attention to November the 29th, 2021. That's a Monday, the day before the shooting. Did you receive an email regarding Jennifer Crumbley's son?
I did, yes.
Okay, I'm going to direct you to the screen that's in front of you. This was admitted yesterday as People's Exhibit 158. This is an email to you and Ms. Pam Fine.
Correct, yes.
Okay. It was sent from whom?
From Jacqueline Cadena.
In
Data on students is stored and accessible for teachers, administrators, students, and parents. Everybody has a different view of that, but it's the same system. So if you're a parent, there's a parent view where you're able to see specific things to your child as a parent. For students, it's the same thing. You can see stuff for your students, which includes your grades, missing assignments, and then like my view as a part of the school staff administration would be to be able to see all of that information.
Okay.
And input information to that as well.
And as an administrator, you're able to input, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. And that came with every student in the district, would that be right?
Correct.
That was Jennifer Crumbley's son, a student at Oxford High School in the fall of 2021?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to November of 2021, did you have any interaction with him?
I did not know.
I want to direct your attention to November the 29th, 2021. That's a Monday, the day before the shooting. Did you receive an email regarding Jennifer Crumbley's son?
I did, yes.
Okay, I'm going to direct you to the screen that's in front of you. This was admitted yesterday as People's Exhibit 158. This is an email to you and Ms. Pam Fine.
Correct, yes.
Okay. It was sent from whom?
From Jacqueline Cadena.
Okay.
And so she had heard me returning to my office, and I remember her saying, "Hey, do you remember that email we got today?" And I said, "What email?" And then that's when I had walked over to her office and pulled it up on my phone, and she began to explain to me that she had read the email and knew that I was in the meeting, and I believe she even responded, "Got it," to the teacher.
Okay.
And walked me through the steps she took, which was calling the student down.
And Mr. Hopkins was with Ms. Fine in the meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. The meeting had since ended, and so like she was just walking me through what they did.
Okay. So she updated you on what happened in the meeting?
I'm sorry, what?
She gave you an update on what happened in the meeting?
Yes, correct.
And received that information, did you determine if you had to take any steps?
That I did anything further. She did everything that I would have done.
All right. Did you have any additional interaction with that student at all on Monday the 29th?
No.
Okay. Now, moving towards, did you receive any emails later on in the evening, Monday the 29th, regarding a student? Anything at all with him?
I don't remember if I did or not.
Okay. November the 30th, Tuesday. This has already been admitted on your screen here as People's 160. This is an email from Miss Morgan. And who is she and what does she do?
Miss Morgan is a math teacher at Oxford High School.
Okay. So she sent this email to you as well as Mr. Hopkins Tuesday, November 30th at 9:32 a.m.?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Up until this point in time, did you have any conversations regarding Jennifer Crumbley's son?
Prior to this email?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that, please.
So I was in my office Tuesday morning when Miss Morgan had walked down to the front office looking to share that had drawn inappropriate things on a piece of paper, and I was the only person available to respond to that or to hear her out.
So let me ask you this. This is People 74. It's already been admitted. You said a piece of paper. Is this what you're referring to?
That is correct.
Okay. So prior to the email at 9:32 a.m., Miss Morgan showed you this, which has been admitted as People 74?
She showed me an image of that on her cell phone. Yes.
On her cell phone? Okay.
Yes.
Do you recall about what time that happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know that it was during our second period of the day. However, I don't remember what time.
Okay, that's fair.
It was.
Tell us about that conversation when she came and showed you this picture.
She had said she just needed to share that a student had written some inappropriate things on an assignment, And so I told her, I kind of waved her into my office since everybody else was occupied. And she had turned her phone around and showed it to me. And I had noticed the name on the top that I recognized from the day before. Ms. Fine had shared that information with me. And my response to that was, I need to go get his counselor. And her response was, I need to get back to class.
Okay. So that was in the second hour, do you think?
Correct.
Okay, so obviously it was before the email sent at 9:30?
Yes.
All right. Now, what was your initial response in seeing this, Exhibit 74?
That I needed to alert his counselor.
And why is that?
Because it seemed like he might need somebody to talk to, or we might need to figure out how we could get him some additional help.
Okay. Now, when you first looked at this drawing, what's the first thing that jumped out at you?
The statements.
Which one?
Blood everywhere is what I noticed first. The world is dead. My life is useless. Those were the things that stood out to me.
Okay. So when you were shown this, were you thinking of a lens through discipline or through his counselor?
Counseling, 100%.
Why do you say 100%?
Because I don't notice anything on there that would rise to the level that there would be any type of student discipline.
Okay. So what happened next, please?
So she left. Miss Morgan left my office, and I left my office. She went return. Mr. Hopkins.
Okay. And did you show this drawing to Mr. Hopkins?
I did not.
Okay. Did you? When you say you alerted him, what do you mean?
So when I arrived to the threshold of the doorway in his office, before I even said a word, he said to me, "Ethan Crumbley," and my response was, "Yeah, how did you know?" And so he had shared that he had received an email that morning from another teacher regarding Ethan Crumbley, and his understanding was that's why I was there, and that's when I had shared with him that I had received a drawing from Miss Morgan with those statements on it.
Okay, this drawing right here, Exhibit 74?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now tell us what happened next, please.
His response, Mr. Hopkins' response to that was, "I'll go get him from class right now." And he stood up from his chair and walked down to the math class and grabbed Ethan.
Okay, did you go with him or did you stay?
I remained in his office.
Okay. And did Mr. Hopkins bring him back to his own office?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and what did you do?
I sat in there and mostly listened to the conversation.
Okay, let me stop right there.
Sure.
So, just so we're clear in the chronology, Mr. Hopkins retrieved the defendant's son from class, brought him back to his office where you were waiting?
Correct.
Okay. And then was a conversation ensued between Mr. Hopkins and the defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay. Now, he testified yesterday, so without telling us what words were actually said by each other, tell us what you did and why.
I just sat there to listen for one, to be an additional adult for support. I feel it's important in my job to know that there's more than one adult in the building that cares about the students. And so it was important to me that I was there for support, but also there in case there was a reason that there was behavior that rose to the level for discipline.
Okay. And during that initial conversation, did your opinion ever change to look at this as a counseling lens or a discipline lens?
No, it did not change.
Was a decision made to call that student's parents?
Yes.
Okay. And who made the decision?
Sean had made that decision.
Okay. And were you there when he made that phone call?
I was, yes.
All right. And we have evidence to suggest it was at 9:24 and 9:27 a.m. when phone calls were made. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
Were you in the office when the calls were made?
I was, yes.
Okay. Were you in the office when a portion of the phone call was on speakerphone?
I was, yes.
Tell us what you recall from that conversation.
So I recall Mr. Hopkins putting the phone on speaker so that the conversation could be had collectively. And so Sean Hopkins had introduced myself and said we were there with Ethan. And during that conversation, he had forwarded the email that we got of this assignment to his mother.
Is that the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley?
That is, yes, correct.
Okay.
So that she could see it in real time while we were having the conversation.
Okay. Did the defendant make any statements regarding that?
I believe she said, "What were you thinking? Why did you do this?"
Okay. And that was while on the speakerphone where her son would be able to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Were you there when, well, at some point the defendant and her husband arrived at the school?
Correct.
Okay. So in the time period that elapsed from that phone call to the time period when the defendant and her husband arrived at the school, what did you do?
So once the conversation had ended, we had already changed class periods, and it was now our third hour of the day. And so his backpack was still remaining in the math class. And so it's a common protocol that our security or a hall monitor or someone will go retrieve the students' belongings if they're still waiting on a parent meeting or still having a conversation. That way it's not left when other students arrive.
Okay, so what did you do?
So I left Mr. Hopkins' office and walked down to Miss Morgan's classroom to retrieve his backpack.
Okay, and did you give it to him?
Yes, I did.
Okay. At that point in time, with the COVID protocols in place for students using lockers?
Not at all.
Okay, so every student had a backpack with them at all times?
Every student had a backpack.
Okay. Now, what was your expectation of what was to occur at the meeting with James and Jennifer Crumbley at the school?
So my understanding was that we were going to discuss what would be best to move forward next for getting him some additional help, and that would be happening that afternoon.
Okay. As in happening that afternoon, what does that mean?
That he would be leaving from the parent meeting with his parents.
Okay. Were you in the counseling office during the meeting with James and Jennifer Crumbley?
For most of it, yes.
Okay. And who led the meeting primarily?
Mr. Hopkins did.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how that meeting progressed.
So when I arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were already in his office, and they had already began talking about the events that led to the parent meeting, and the edited drawing.
Yeah, you said so. This is Exhibit 123. So is this what you're referring to as the edited drawing?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
That was on the table because Mr. Hopkins had retrieved that from the teacher when he went to get Ethan from class.
Okay.
So that was on the table, and for them to view. Although, like I mentioned before, Sean had emailed a copy of the original document to Mrs. Crumbley, and so they were kind of discussing what was next. And she had a pamphlet or a packet of resources that the district provides.
So who gave her that?
Sean, Mr. Hopkins.
Okay. And when we say resources, what do you mean by that?
Different counseling resources available in the area, and it's like a standard packet that the school district would have on hand to provide to anybody that needed it.
Okay. Have you been involved in meetings where that sort of information has been provided to parents in the past?
Yes.
And you said it's a standard list of information? Or
It's
resources?
just a general list, yeah,
Okay.
of stuff in the surrounding local area.
Does that include facilities or organizations that allow same-day counseling appointments?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay. Are you familiar with Common Ground?
I am familiar with Common
And what is that organization?
So that is, they offer a couple different things. So they offer mental health resources. You can call a hotline to speak to somebody. You can even go there for like day of intake screening assessments. And that is the organization that in previous districts I worked in that a lot of students that have been seen for mental health had went to day of.
And they're here in Oakland County?
Correct, yes.
All right. All right. Now, clearly your expectation of what was to happen at the meeting was not met. Tell us about that, please.
So, throughout the conversation, I had overheard his parents confirm the things that Ethan was sharing with us in his office that were kind of explaining the drawings and the words that he had written that supported him feeling sad. And so he had shared that a dog had passed away recently, a grandmother had passed away, and then one of his close friends had moved within the last month or so. And then that he was very interested in designing video games, and that had led to a argument the night before that he should be more focused on his academics rather than the video games.
Did she provide any details about that argument?
No.
Okay. Did she provide any details about how the circumstances in which when his friend moved away?
No.
I'm sorry, please continue.
And that he really struggled through the pandemic with the virtual learning, as many students did, and that they felt like he should put more focus on his academics than spending time working through the video game design.
So at any point, did you see this as anything different than your initial perception, which was a mental health issue?
No.
Okay. You said you had the backpack with you and you provided it to the student?
Yeah.
Okay. At any point, did anybody request to search the backpack?
They did not know.
And did you search the backpack yourself?
I did not. It wasn't necessary or rise to the occasion that I do that, because I didn't have any reasonable suspicion to do that. And I did that.
Explain what that means, please.
Sure. So reasonable suspicion means that there needs to, by law says you have to have some type of reasonable suspicious activity that would lead to searching student belongings. And so typically that's like a report that someone has a vape pen or a weapon, or that they're securing something they're not supposed to have at school, or nervous behavior when you have their belongings, which is very typical of students that we have searched in the past. They usually, their behavior will change when you're in possession of their stuff, and none of that was present at that moment.
Okay. And again, it's a lot of details. Well, have you ever met the defendant before, Jennifer Crumbley?
I have not known.
You ever met her husband before?
I have not known.
Prior to this day, you ever met her son before?
I did not know.
Okay. And was he wearing a face mask the entire time?
He was wearing a, yes, a COVID mask.
Now, was there a desire for him not to be left alone at this point?
That's what Sean had stated during the meeting when we were discussing what to do moving forward. And so his recommendation was that Ethan receive outside counseling as soon as possible today, if possible, meaning the 30th. Mm-hmm. And the response to that was, we can't take him anywhere today. We have to go back to work.
And who said that?
Mrs. Crumbley said that.
The defendant did?
Yes.
Okay. And what was your reaction to that?
It seemed a little odd based on my experiences in previous similar parent meetings when students are being seen for mental health.
Tell us about that.
Could you rephrase that? Tell us about
So why did it seem odd to you?
Because typically...
Your Honor, objection as to relevance, what he's experienced with other parents.
Just it's similar to Mr. Hopkins' testimony yesterday.
Well,
You can lay a foundation that he's been in these meetings before.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sir, you've had the opportunity to be in these type of parent meetings before with mental health issues?
Yes.
Okay. And could you put a number for the jury on how many you've been a part of?
Between 5 and 10 of them.
Okay.
Across the time of my education.
Okay. So calling in a parent for an immediate meeting, that's not a regular thing that occurs, correct?
It is not. No.
Okay. So that's something that something has to cause the school administration to do that.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, you testified earlier that it was your expectation that the defendant or her husband would take the defendant's son home, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And this did not meet your expectation, but you found it to be odd. So, comparing what happened November the 30th with everything in your prior experience, tell us why you felt that to be odd.
Typically, when it's recommended that parents take their children to seek out mental assistance immediately, they follow the direction of the mental health professional, and that's been my experience every time.
In this case, that would have been Sean Hopkins.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now, what was your impression of how that meeting ended on the 30th?
It sort of seemed like it ended abruptly. It was a very short meeting. I want to say it was somewhere near 10 minutes long.
Okay.
And once it was determined that they were not going to take him home, it was stated that he would end up having to walk home if he was going home and then be home by himself. And
who said
that? Ethan had said that.
Okay. In front of his parents?
Yes.
Did either Jennifer or James dispute that?
No, they didn't.
Okay. Please continue.
And that's when Sean had responded that he really didn't want Ethan to be home by himself alone, and that he thought it was best that if he wasn't going to leave that morning with his parents, that he remain in school so that he could be surrounded by other people, and that he would monitor his attendance and check in with him.
Okay. Nothing further.
Cross?